The midterms elections are upon us. And based on what we have been looking at for the past few months, for the past year, this unification of church and state, the image of the beast, and also in recent days and weeks with the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court bench, and this unholy alliance that we see between Trump and the Evangelicals, and what they have been calling for an amendment to the Constitution. This midterms election is a wake-up call for Seventh-day Adventists. This nation will be, after this midterm election, at a point of no return. We will see Bible prophecies being fulfilled, as Sister White mentioned, very rapidly. Here is the article that caught my attention I would like to share with you. Notice, it says, from Right Wing Watch, November 2nd, 2018, Dutch Sheets praise for midterms, that's the midterms election, calls Christians to, what's the word? War. Says U.S. meant to be world's strongest voice for the gospel. What he just said there goes along with Revelation chapter 13, verse 11, which described this nation coming up as a Christian or Christian principles, but will end up speaking as a dragon. And when does this happen? When we see the Protestants, apostate Protestants, are uniting with the state, as it were, because the Bible tells us that's the image of the beast, or the characteristics of the beast, or the resemblance of the beast. Which beast? The first beast of Revelation 13, the papacy, which had and still has the characteristics of church and state. Notice again, back to the screen, Dutch Sheets, one of the Trump supporting apostles and prophets who have organized a series of events praying for God to create Supreme Court vacancies for President Trump and destroy his enemies, led a live stream prayer session for the midterm elections on Tuesday night, with a special focus on filing the federal courts with judges who share their conservative worldview. Sheets, notice, is a what? Dominionist, who has long taught that the church, the ecclesia, is meant to be a governing body legislating God's will on earth. This is just like the Roman Catholic Church. That sounds the exact same thing that the Catholic have been saying to justify the church ruling over the state. So you notice that this article says he is a dominionist, and that's what they believe. They believe that the church should govern, should rule over all aspects of life, including the political arena. Notice with me what Sister White says here on the screen. Great Controversy 443. In order for the United States to form an image of the beast, notice, the religious power must so control the civil government that the authority of the state will also be employed by the church to accomplish her own ends. That is exactly what Sister White just said here, that they will use their dominion over the state. This is what we are seeing happening here. Notice this article here. It says, from Political Research Associates, Dominionism rising, a theocratic movement hiding in plain sight. Notice, Dominionism is the theocratic idea that regardless of theological camp, means, or timetable, God has called conservative Christians to exercise dominion over society by taking control of political and cultural institutions. Notice, Dominionism we frame as religious liberty. In other words, dominionism, Christian dominionism, has been disguising under religious liberty. Help Christians who are being persecuted. But what's happening? This is what happened during the time of Constantine, which led to the time of the papal power. When the church unified with the state, then soon after that, the church started to rule over the state and persecute anyone who would not bow to its dogma. Back to the screen. It says, Dominionism, we framed as religious liberty. We must use the doctrine of religious liberty to gain independence for Christian schools until we train up a generation of a people who know that there is no religious neutrality, no neutral law, no neutral education, and no neutral civil government. Then notice, they will get busy in constructing, notice carefully now, in constructing a Bible-based social, political, and religious order which finally denies, which does what? Which finally denies the religious liberty of the enemies of God. So while they are crying for religious liberty for Christians to be able to exercise their God-given will to worship God according to the dictate of their heart, but they themselves are trying to gain dominion, now they will turn the table and persecute those who would not go along with their beliefs. What does the Bible say? Again, in Revelation chapter 13, in verse 14, it says, United States of America will deceive the whole world and cause the world to make an image to the beast. Verse 15 tells us that those who would not bow down and worship will be killed. Going all the way to verse 17 of Revelation chapter 13. This is where we are heading. Notice with me what the Bible says here. This is from Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. They use this text here to justify dominionism. It says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. That's one of the passages from the Bible that they use to describe that the church must have dominion over the state and everything else. Now, there has been also a push to amend the Constitution and also to say, and they are saying, that the Constitution does not prohibit the unification of church and state. Notice the next article here. It says, from the Daily Illini, October 27, 2018, First Amendment misuse in debates over religion. Those who favor, notice, excluding religion from the public square often contend that the founders intended a strict separation of church and state and codified that intention in the First Amendment. Notice, what's the answer? They are wrong. If they want to make the argument that church and state should be separate, they should stop leaning on the Constitution. A wall of separation between church and state, notice, is not a constitutional principle. Hence, this is what the prophet that God has raised for these last days has said, that this nation shall repudiate every principle of its constitution. In spite of the fact that the Constitution says, the First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Yet, they are telling us that there's nowhere in the Constitution where it says that the church cannot unify with the state. Back to the screen. It says, the framers would surely be aghast at the legal disadvantages today placed on religion, almost all of which emerge by judicial fiat in the latter half of the 20th century, with little basis in American history or tradition. It's time, brothers and sisters, to get ready, because this nation is indeed speaking as a dragon, because they are attacking the very constitution that make them what this nation is and has become. Those two principles, republicanism, Protestantism, are being uprooted to give way to the man of sin. Remember, Constantine came into the scene and joined Christianity under the pretense of religious liberty. Then what happened? Constantine legislated Sunday. That gave way, as Sister White says here, that the unification of church and state, the compromise that the church made with paganism, and that represents the state there, gave way to the man of sin. Notice with me, it says here, great controversy, page 50, paragraph 1. As persecution ceased and Christianity entered the courts and palaces of kings, she laid aside the humble simplicity of Christ and his apostles for the pomp and pride of pagan priests and rulers, and in place of the requirements of God, she substituted human theories and traditions. This compromise between paganism and Christianity, notice that's church and state there, resulted in the development of the man of sin, foretold in prophecy as opposing and exalting himself above God. That gigantic system of false religion is a masterpiece of Satan's power, a monument of his efforts to sit himself upon the throne, to rule the earth according to his will. So we are seeing the era of Constantine being repeated again. The unification of church and state, followed by the legislation of Sunday law, then persecution will come against God's people. So what must we do as we see this development and as we are about to experience this point of no return as a result of this midterm election? What must God's people do? Notice with me what the Bible says from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 13. Watch ye, stand how? Fast in the faith. Quit you like men. Be what? Be strong. So what must we do? Watch. We must watch and pray. That means we have to be ready and get ready. It says, stand fast in the faith, as in Revelation chapter 14, verse 12. Here is the patience. Watch ye and stand fast. Stand fast. You're going to need patience. Whose patience? It's the patience of Jesus Christ. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God. And whose faith do they have? The faith of Jesus Christ. Notice, and then the verse says, quit you like men. And what are the next two words? Be strong. Be strong in the Lord. Rely on Him. We need to watch and pray. We must make preparation for what's coming. Spiritual preparation and also the physical preparation. At this time, God's people should be found themselves in the country. We need to get ready, and be ready. God bless.